Okay, we're on. Ashley, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for waking up early. I know you're on a completely different time zone in New Zealand, so I appreciate that
Yeah, no worries. It's good to be on and have a chat with you.
for sure. So tell me the story about how you go from Canada to New Zealand.
Yeah, so when I was 12, my parents, so I grew up in Canada, I was born there and everything. And then when I was 12, my parents just said, "We're moving to New Zealand." Um, they've both been here before, they really liked it. So we just moved, they just wanted to change. So we came here, yeah, when I was 12. So I've been here over half my life now, which is pretty crazy.
Wow. What is it like there?
It's similar to Canada and North America. Similar culture, obviously, and um, yeah, not too different, to be honest, which is part of the reason why they came here as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I a couple of the big authors and like thinkers that I look up to, Derek Sivers and
Yeah.
Naval. Derek Sivers lives there, obviously. Naval did an interview where he was there and he was like, this is the greatest place on earth for like balance. So I'm curious, like, how do you how do you incorporate nature, I guess, into your day to day? Because I know New Zealand is a beautiful place.
Yeah, that's interesting actually, because I think something came out maybe a couple weeks ago, and they said that Auckland, that's the city I'm in, is like rated like number 3 or something for like work-life balance in the world. So that's pretty crazy. It definitely, yeah, there's nature everywhere. Like I go for a walk. I go for like 3 walks a day. And there's just like there's hikes like less than 10 minutes from my house. So it's really cool. There's with the weather as well, because it's at least where I am, it doesn't snow. It doesn't really go below 0 degrees Celsius. So there's always trees and birds and green grass like all year round. So that's part of the reason why I really like living here is like you can be outside all year. Like there's no season that you can't be outside. Even now it's April, so we're going into winter in June and it's still 20 degrees, and sunny. Like I wear shorts all year round here.
That is amazing. And I'm in Buenos Aires, so we're also going into winter here. And I think it's probably around 20, but I'm used to Fahrenheit. So I think like that translates to probably like 65, 70, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I mean, I feel like living in a place with so much nature has got to be so good for your mental health. Like I love Buenos Aires, but it is a bit too much of like a big city for me. And I'm realizing like I love to be able to detach from the computer and from working online and getting into nature versus when I leave the computer and it's just like all concrete and buildings, it doesn't make me feel as like present and connected. So yeah, I'm a bit jealous for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely good. Yeah, to just be able to get outside and for it to just be green everywhere.
Yeah. And I was reading that in your bio that you have a master's in psych. Is that right?
Yeah.
Did you study in New Zealand or did you go elsewhere?
Yeah. So I've done everything here from did a elementary school in Canada and then have done everything else here since. So yeah,
Okay,
did it.
cool. And with the psych degree, like how did you go from doing psychology as like a master's to now like working online? Like what was that story?
Yeah, so it kind of happened accidentally. So I was doing my master's degree in psych and then I just loved self-improvement and health. And so I just read a lot, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and then I started writing online on Medium just for fun, like no intention of going anywhere with it. Um, and then it kind of just started taking off. I grew really quickly. The platform pays you, which is really cool. So I started making money online really quickly. Like within about 9 months, I'd made like I was making the equivalent of a full-time income online. So then they said, everyone says, start an email list. So I started doing that. That got up to like 8,000 subscribers really quickly as well. Um, then I started building products. Like I have a membership, I have a premium newsletter, and it just happened accidentally. I never set out to do it. So then I finished my thesis and just never got a job in psychology.
Wow. It's fascinating to me that common thread between a lot of people in the creator space, like not having any intention to like go anywhere with it. And then it kind of evolves
Yeah.
into like, oh my gosh, this could actually be like my full-time thing. It was really similar for me. I started the newsletter just for fun, like to family and friends around self-improvement, just because I like listened to a bunch of podcasts, read a bunch of books, and I wanted to share my thoughts. And little did I know, like that would lead me down this slippery slope of like Twitter and like building an audience and like realizing, holy shit, like this can be a real thing. So, what was like the turning point for you when it went from hobby to like, wow, like this could actually be my thing?
I think it was because I was working a part-time job as well as I did my thesis. And when my income online passed that income, I was like, this is real. Like I could quit my job and put more time into this and make more money. So I think that was about the 9-month point since I wrote my first article on Medium to my income passing my actual job income. So I was like, this is real.
And 9 months is like relatively quick in the grand scheme of things. I'm sure like as you were going about it, it feels like a long time. And I haven't even been in this online stuff for 9 months and it's already changed my life. But it's amazing to me how literally just sharing your thoughts online can change your life in less than a year. Like it blows my mind to this day.
It's so quick. Yeah, in a matter of months, you can replace your job income easy if you have the right strategies.
It's crazy. And I don't think people realize the possibilities of it until you actually get in there and do it. Because from the outside, it kind of looks like a scam. It doesn't look like it could be possible. But once you actually do it, it's like, wow, this is real. But in terms of Medium, like I've been hearing more and more about people posting on Medium, but I've never done it myself. So like I'm curious how does the payment work? Like is it subscription based? What is the business model?
Yeah. So to read the articles on Medium, you need a monthly subscription. And then the platform essentially pools that money together and then distributes it to the writers. And they do it based on reading time. So the longer someone stays on your article, the more money you'll get. That's a current model. I don't know if they've changed it recently. They've been making a few changes, but that's roughly how it works. So there's no ads on the platform. So it's all ad free. So you're getting paid for the quality of your writing, which is really cool.
And with your newsletter and Twitter, like what does your content workflow or content generation system look like? Like do you repurpose a lot from Medium to Twitter or vice versa?
Yeah. So Twitter's my main thing right now. So a lot of the time I will just repost from Twitter to Medium. Medium's kind of taken a backseat as I try to grow Twitter. The newsletter is its own thing completely, just because I have a really specific structure of my readers get one habit every week, and I talk about why it's important and then how to implement it. So that's always kind of just been its own thing. I don't really repurpose that, but yeah. But with Medium, I used to just write exclusively for their articles, but it's hard to balance all of it while trying to grow on Twitter as well.
Yeah, you definitely have to like focus on one thing at a time is like the common thread I'm seeing around a lot of creators. I'm kind of a
Yeah.
hypocrite for saying that because like I'm trying to do this podcast, I'm trying to do YouTube newsletter and everything. But I feel like once you figure out the growth game for one, you can kind of like start to pivot to others. So I think I might be in that transition, but you got me thinking like maybe I should just start repurposing a lot of the stuff I'm writing on Twitter to Medium. Like I guess there's no downside really.
Yeah, definitely. You can, yeah, cross publish stuff. And if you're writing it anyway, you might as well try.
Why did you choose Medium originally?
I used to just enjoy reading the articles on there. And then one day I saw the little button and it said write for us. So I was like, okay, I'll write something. And then I just kind of kept writing and then made my first dollar. And I was like, wow, I just got paid to write. I literally made like $1. and then I was just hooked. So yeah, it was just accidental. I didn't really pick it. It just kind of happened one day. I'm just like, yeah, I'll write an article.
So cool. And were you always a writer growing up, or did this kind of just happen as you got older?
I always loved writing growing up. So it did make sense that this is kind of where I've ended up. But I used to write, yeah, stories all the time as a kid. Writing was always a strength for me, especially like going through university and stuff. It just always came easy, but I never imagined I would be a writer and get paid to write. Like that was never even an option for me.
Same. It's so interesting. And it seems like a lot of the people who I know that are the best writers on Twitter that I see, they all had this like childhood love of doing it. And I had it myself too. Like when I was a kid, I would write stories about like what happened at the recess football games. I would write like fiction stories. I remember writing like a book report just for fun, like, and gave it to my parents. But I lost that love of writing as I went throughout school, honestly. Like I think maybe it had to do with like my self identity is like being a football player jock, and I didn't want to like be a writer. And writing is kind of a vulnerable thing, right? Because it's like your ideas are directly going onto paper and everybody can kind of see what you're thinking. But yeah, it's interesting how our childhood obsessions or hobbies, like they are the key things I think that we can do to like reach our potential. So I'm so happy I came back to it. And I think it's really cool that you were able to sustain that your whole life. Um, Next question about like doing this while in university and while getting your master's. Like, did your classmates know about what you were doing this whole time? No?
Don't think anyone knew. Like, even my friends, I didn't really talk about it because I don't know, there wasn't a lot to talk about at the start. So no one really knew, I would say. Just I was just balancing all of it.
Yeah. How about now?
Now everybody knows because I don't have a real job. So, but people still really struggle to understand what I do and how I'm making money. Like, especially
Mhm.
like my dad, it's been 3 years and he's still is like, so why are people paying you? How are you making money? It's definitely hard
It's
to understand for people.
Yeah, it's very unconventional, especially because like you go through all this schooling, like you get a master's, you're probably expected like, okay, now you're going to get a job in psychology, and now you've completely pivoted. And similar to you, I was actually studying psychology in university too. So technically, I'm still a student. Actually, I'm on a break. I'm on a gap quarter. But now that I've seen the possibilities of like writing online, I don't think I'll turn back. But yeah, trying to explain to like my friends or even family members, my parents are pretty understanding now because I string them along throughout the whole thing, so they really understand it. But like at first they're super skeptical. But I feel like as a creator, telling people you're like a creator or you write online, it's like synonymous with like, oh, like I'm unemployed, or like I don't have a job, or I don't know what I'm doing. So it's such an interesting thing to navigate. And I feel like you can only really relate and understand with other people that are doing it too. So something that I've dealt with throughout this whole journey, and I still do, is like the loneliness aspect of creating online and being misunderstood. So how do you deal with that?
Definitely finding a community of people is helpful. And yeah, like talking to people on Twitter, just if I see someone who's doing something interesting, I'll just send them a message. Like, I can't remember if I messaged you, I might have reached out to you first. Like, I talk to people, I join groups. You just have to have those people around you who actually understand what you're doing and what's involved with it, because the people working like a 9 to 5 job, like they're like, there's just no way they can understand it just because they've never done it. So it's really hard. So definitely like just building friendships, getting on calls like this with people doing a similar thing is really helpful. And just even to bounce ideas back and forth, like being an online fitness coach, I don't know anyone else in my life who's doing that. So like if I
Yeah.
have a question, like I can't ask anyone in my life because they don't know. They don't know how any of it works. So it's really good to connect with people doing the same thing as you and discuss like how you're doing it if you're running into problems and stuff like that.
Completely agreed. Like finding the community of people through Twitter has been the most eye-opening thing ever. Like I've moved down here with my best friend and like we met on Twitter, which is crazy to me. And like I think by writing online and sharing your thoughts and ideas, you filter for the people who have the same interest as you. Because when I was in college and like leaving the football team, getting really big into self-improvement and health and all this, like the people around me were not actually into it as well. But when you write about it online, you instantly attract those same community of people. But the one thing that I think is still missing is like that in-person community aspect. That's something I definitely miss because this is awesome. Like talking to you is great, but it's still through a computer, right? It'd be so cool if we could actually like sit down and chat in person. And I guess like the freedom of doing this is you can move anywhere in the world and like have that connection, but finding those people and like actually making it happen is a different story.
Yeah, definitely. Like we already spend so much time on our computer and then we're just spending more time on our computer now, but it's better than nothing. And yeah, we have the freedom, like we can go anywhere in the world because our business is completely online. So I think it definitely is probably worth making that happen.
Definitely. And New Zealand is on like my short list of places that I might want to check out just because of all I've heard about it. And I love like Derek Sivers is one of my favorite authors. And he just raves about it. So if I end up there, I'll definitely hit you up. We'd have to meet up. But
Yeah, definitely.
you hit on a good point there of like we're on our computers all day. Even these calls are on our computers. So how do you manage like detaching from this and like getting into the real world? Because I struggle with it sometimes.
Yeah, I definitely struggle with it. Especially the past 2 or 3 weeks. My business has kind of just been like doing really well, but it means I'm working longer hours on my computer, and then I turn the computer off and then I'm on my phone and I'm still working. I'm replying to DMs on Twitter or checking emails. So it's definitely hard because there is no like boundary of like you can leave work. It's always like it's my phone, it's on my phone, and I've always got my phone with me. So it's definitely something I struggle with. I'm also like I love it. So like it's really hard for me to stop. Like I
Mhm.
got up, before 6 a.m. today, and I try to like, meditate and take a few minutes before I start working, but it's hard. Like I just want to jump right in. And then same, like I'll go all the way until like bedtime. So I'm trying again to be better there. But something that's really good for me is because I play hockey. So I play hockey depending on the time of year, like 3 to 4 nights a week, ideally. So that like I can't be on my phone at hockey and I'm with my friends. I'm on the rink. I think that's been really good for me. And we travel a lot as well. So if we go away for a weekend to compete, like my mind is so focused on hockey that it provides such a good break from all of this because if I'm at home, like I'm just going to work just because I like it so much. But it's definitely a balance I'm still trying to figure out.
Same. Being so obsessed with this is such a blessing and a curse because like comparing this online stuff to the 9 to 5 internship I was working a year ago today, like it's just night and day with how much I like it. And like you, I wake up and I'm like, all right, let's go. Like it's so fun, but learning how to detach is hard. But I like the fact that you have a hobby that forces you to like get away from the phone. Like you can't be on the rink with your phone, like obviously. So I think that's something I need to start incorporating more. So I was an athlete my whole life too, like football, baseball, basketball. And that was always such a good way to like get out of my head and into my body. Because I think I'm somewhat of like I'm always in my head, I guess. I'm always thinking. And finding ways to escape that is so important. But now that I've stopped playing sports actually competitively, I haven't found that next thing. So I actually did my first boxing class like last week, and that was so fun. But I'm trying to find something like that with hockey where you can just like totally get away. Thinking about picking up surfing too at like the next location I go to. But yeah, I think that's so important to be able to detach.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm the same. Like I surf here actually and go mountain biking and go on hikes and stuff. I think, yeah, you gotta have those times where you almost force yourself to not work. Cause I'll say like, I'll take the evening off and then I turn my laptop off at 4 o'clock. But then I'm like, I don't like, even if I'm not on my phone, I'm still thinking. I'm always thinking. I'm like, how can I help this client? Or like, what's my next thread going to be about? Like, I never stop. But getting outside and getting into sports and stuff, like, you can't think about it. Like, you have to switch off.
It's a blessing and a curse to be an entrepreneur too, because like for you and I, like we are our own business. So theoretically, we could always be doing something more, right? I could always be like writing more threads, or I could always be like working on the back end of like a newsletter or something. And so, yeah, it is so hard to detach, but I think it's worth the price of the freedom it brings. And I just think it's like it's a never ending journey to figure out like how to balance it, right? Because I don't know, I have this obsessive personality with it and I'm always like, oh, like I'm not doing enough. But if I step back and realize like, okay, like I did my work I needed to for the day, like it'd actually be more beneficial probably for me to completely get away. So it's a never ending process. But yeah, I've been trying to use airplane mode on my phone. Like that is the biggest thing. I'll like first 3 hours of the day when I'm working, I'll keep it on airplane mode just to stay focused. But then sometimes if it's like 7 or 8 at night and I just want to like totally relax and watch a movie or something, I'll turn my phone on airplane mode. I'll put it in the other room. I'm like, I'm not gonna work, but it's hard. It's so hard.
Yeah, it's definitely hard, especially when you're in like a grind season. Like, I definitely go through periods where I'm only working like 4 hours a day and then like I'm okay with detaching, but I'm pushing for growth so much right now. And I'm like, um, with the time difference as well, like when I wake up, the US and Canada have like already had their full day. So like I'm behind on DMs. So I'm like, I want to get into my DMs and emails right away. And then in my evening, like England and Europe are waking up. So it's like, oh, I better check on my DMs again. And it's definitely hard, but it's, yeah, it's a balance because it's all seasons of life, right? Like you got to pick the times when you do want to grind hard, and then you got to pick the times when you're going to back off a little bit and just enjoy life a bit more. Because that's something else I've been thinking about recently. It's like we work so hard for this freedom, but then, I'll work like a 12-hour day and it's like I need to like stop and enjoy what I've built for myself, like I can't just work all day. I need to actually enjoy the rewards.
How do you determine what season of life you're in? Like, do you plan it at the start of the year, or is it more so like as you go, you kind of just feel it out?
Yeah, I think because obviously business has natural ebbs and flows. So I kind of just roll with them. Like, yeah, as I said now, like I'm in like a grind just because I've got so much momentum with my business. Like I'm signing a lot of clients, my Twitter's growing quickly, everything's kind of going. So I'm working a lot right now. But because I was at a world champs in February. So like January, February was like the season of my life was like hockey. Like I'm doing hockey now. The business took a back seat. There wasn't really much growth. So like those are kind of like natural progressions. So I don't really plan it. I do just kind of feel it out. I'm hoping that I'll get into a more relaxed season soon just because I've been grinding so hard. But I think things are starting to settle now. I'm starting to feel things out. Twitter's going okay. Everything's kind of flowing a bit better now. So I hope I can take a back seat soon.
Totally. The momentum piece you hit on is something that I've been realizing is like the most important stuff in all of this. Like, and it's hard to really articulate or like put a pin on what that is, but I don't know. It's just like this feeling like you just have everything going for you. You're in a schedule, you're in a routine. And it's like once you get that momentum, like you want to try to hang on to it for as long as possible. So like what does momentum mean to you?
Um, well, momentum is big for me. Like that's my business name, like my newsletters momentum, everything's momentum. Just because I think like that's so important in every aspect of life. Like I'm really big on just showing up every day, taking a few little steps and building momentum because that's how you succeed in anything like health, business, anything. So yeah, with my business, like I'm just trying to show up every day. I've got my non-negotiables that I'm trying to stick to every day, and just every day just take one step towards where I want to go, and it's the same with your health. And that's what I get my clients to do. It's like, you don't have to do everything now, just take one small step, like whether that's eating more protein or anything, and you just show up every single day, and it just compounds, and you'll be surprised at how far you can go with a few small steps.
Yeah, that's some wisdom right there. Like that is so true. And like I think the practice of having some non-negotiables in like business, health, fitness, etc., even like spirituality or just like I don't know, personal time is so key to maintain that momentum. And I notice like when I get away from my non-negotiables, like that's when things start to really slide and I can completely like burn out or lose momentum. So what are those non-negotiables for you in like life, business, etc.?
Yeah. So I recently have been trying to meditate every day. That's something that I think everyone struggles to stay consistent with, but I've been going with that for probably a couple, maybe 2 or 3 months now, every day, which is good. I think that's important, even if it's like 1 minute, just to sit down and just be for a minute. So that's a big one. Um, Most of mine are business related, but I also have like steps. Like I have to hit 8,000 steps minimum a day. Like if I'm not doing that, then my priorities aren't right. So those are like my two main life ones. And then with business, it's like um, engage on Twitter because that's so important for growth. So I try to do 30 minutes a day of that. Check in with all my clients, send out some DMs, like that sort of thing. And they're not big, but they make such a difference. Like it's so important to look and identify those tasks that are going to like move the needle every day. So like what's going to have the biggest impact? Like, yeah, like writing threads. I try to write a thread every 2 days. And just that sort of thing that's going to help with growth. It's so important to have those things. And I talk about it a lot, especially with my clients. I'm like, just figure out what you need to do every day and focus on those. And when things get overwhelming, just go back to those few things.
Yeah, it's all about setting up systems and not goals. Like that's the new thing that I've really started to incorporate into my life. It's like don't focus as much on the outcome. Focus on setting up the systems day to day so the outcome is inevitable. Like at the start of the year, I put a goal. I was at like 1,000 followers and I was like, I want to hit 50K by the end of the year. But just talking about 50K isn't going to get me to 50K. Like, it's like, what are the daily things that I have to do to get there? And it's like you said, it's like writing a thread. Like, I'm trying to do 5 or 6 a week, which sounds like pretty crazy, especially if you're just starting on Twitter. But I think you'd probably understand this. Like, once you get into the flow of it, like, it's actually not too bad, especially if you're writing about stuff you're interested in. Something I see a lot of people do is like they feel like they have to write about like one thing, like copywriting or like something that is not actually that interesting to them. And then I think it makes it harder to show up every day. But like for you and I think we're super passionate about health and fitness. I'm also passionate about like solopreneurship, freedom, etc. And so sitting down to write those threads for me, it's like so exciting. Like it's actually fun. I don't even dread it. So yeah, I think like from the outside, you're one of the most consistent people I see on Twitter, especially in the fitness space with the threads. So yeah, definitely props to you for that. But how do you come up with topics to write about? What's your idea generation process?
I used to really just write about what I wanted to write about, especially when I was first starting on Medium. I just write about what I was learning about, and that did really well. Like I was never pushing for growth, like ever at the start. Like I literally just did it for fun, and it worked really well. But now more, I'll look at like what other people are doing and what's working well, especially on Twitter. Like I've noticed the types of threads that are doing well, like they always change. So sometimes it's like the short one sentence opener, like if you're in your 20s, read this. But
Yeah.
now I've found it's more like the sciencey threads. So it's like I've been writing more, like I had one today about like muscle mass, and then I had one like about testosterone and gut health and that sort of thing. So like those are doing well. So I keep an eye on what everyone else is doing, and kind of see if I see like 2 or 3 people that have written about like gut health and it did well, I'm like, well, I'm going to write about that. But I also do write just what I want to write sometimes because like you said, like you don't have to write about one thing. It's like you're building like a personal brand. So it's just whatever you're interested in, especially with tweets, like with threads, because I'm pushing for growth right now. I do try to write about validated topics, but with tweets, sometimes I just write about what I want to write about.
I love that. Same. Like whatever comes to my head, I'm like, I'm just gonna put it out there. And trying to detach from like the result, the likes or anything, but using it as data, like, okay, this idea resonated with people. Let me expand on this into a thread. A couple key things you hit on there that I really like are seeing what's working for other people and doing it yourself. Like some people might brush that off and be like, oh, it's not authentic, like you're just stealing ideas. But it's like, no, that's not true at all. Like there's a book that I just read called Steal Like an Artist, and it totally reframed my entire perception of like the creation process. It's like anybody that's ever created anything significant got the idea originally from somebody else and made it their own. Like it's such a smart move to use what's already working and just put your own spin on it, right? And that's what having the personal brand does. And another thing you hit on that I loved was I wasn't like at the start, you're not writing for growth, you're writing for fun. And for me, once I detached from the amount of likes, retweets, even followers I get, it seems like I get more because I'm just writing for the pure sake of enjoying the creation process. And I feel like this might be kind of like some woo-woo shit, but like I feel like the person on the other end of the screen can actually feel the authenticity in your writing. If it feels like you're just forcing something, like it's not going to come across in a way that's interesting. But if you're writing for the pure sake of creativity and expression, like I really think people can feel that.
Yeah, definitely. And someone I've seen who's done that is Noah Ryan. He's grown so quick on Twitter. And he's like even said like he's never pushed for growth. Like he wasn't trying to grow, but he was just writing what he wanted to write about. He didn't follow any of the rules in terms of like writing threads, structuring tweets, like nothing. He just wrote about what he wanted to write about. And he's grown so quickly. So that just shows the power of just being yourself and writing what you want to write about.
Yeah, I love that way of thinking about it. And it makes me feel better because there's sometimes like this conflict of interest. Like people are like, you have to write about your niche, you have to focus in. But I'm like, I want to write about whatever I want to write about. And if people want to follow me, cool. If not, cool. Like it's whatever. But yeah, a couple of your Medium articles like really caught my attention. So I want to go into a couple of them if that's cool. Um, the first one that I really like because I'm a huge coffee fan is the positive effects of drinking coffee. So I was wondering if like we could go into that.
Yeah. So I'm a big coffee fan too, which is why I wrote that. That was one of those things where I was just looking at it for my own interest because I love coffee and then decided to write an article about it. So yeah, I feel like most people think coffee's bad and they shouldn't really drink it. Like it's a bad habit, but there's so many benefits to drinking coffee, like performance, obviously mental and physical performance. Like it's great for fat loss. It's full of antioxidants, so it's so good for like preventing cancer. There's good research showing it prevents like Alzheimer's. Like there's so many benefits. You just need to not go overboard with it.
Yeah, I know you talk about on Twitter a lot, like take a 1 week break from it every month. And that's something I can't seem to make myself get on board with because I don't want to take a break from it. But maybe you could challenge my beliefs on that.
Yeah, it's definitely worthwhile. It's hard to do, but if you do it regularly, it gets easier. And it just makes the coffee so much more effective. Like you actually feel a difference when you've taken a break. So I definitely recommend it.
Okay.
It's hard
Okay.
though.
I don't know if I'm sold. No, I think it definitely is going to be a benefit, but there's something to me about just going to the coffee shop and just writing and like having the coffee. It might not even be conferring that much of a benefit, but I think it's just like this atomic habit that gets me in the zone. But maybe at some point, I know I'm definitely gonna be having to take a little bit of a break from work in like 2 months to go on a family vacation. So maybe I'll reset then, and then I'll use it as an experiment.
Yeah, see how it goes. It's gonna suck. It sucks if you haven't taken a break for a long time, but it does get easier.
Interesting. Okay. And then what are your thoughts on using nicotine?
Um, I haven't used it, but I know there's a lot of good research about it. I think it would be a good tool, but not to use every day, you know? Like
Mhm.
as soon as you're using it every day, it's probably not ideal. It's the same with coffee. Like we really shouldn't need it every day, ideally. But I think as a tool, it is great. I've seen a lot of good research about it.
Yeah, I asked because my beliefs around it have completely been shattered. I used to just brush it off as like nicotine is horrible. I'm staying away. And I think that was good because it kept me from like vaping and stuff as a kid. Um, but I recently watched Chris Williamson and Peter Attia, and they went into nicotine a little bit. And Peter Attia says he loves nicotine and he thinks it's like great. And it can even have like some preventative effects on like neurological disease. And I was like mind blown. And he was saying basically the problem with it is the medium that you get it through. So if you're getting nicotine through cigarettes or vaping, like obviously that's not ideal because of the toxins that are in the chemicals. But if you can just get it through like nicotine gum or like lozenges or even like I think they're called like Zins, I think that could be an interesting thing to leverage with the writing. So I'm gonna start going deeper on that. And so something I've been doing, this is not good. This is not good, but I'll be super open and transparent. So after hearing about this, I was like, I want to try what it's like, but I can't find any nicotine gum or lozenges or anything in Argentina. And so the only thing I've been able to find is cigarettes. And so I know this is not good, but I've been having like one before a writing session, and it's actually a game changer. Now I don't want to get in the habit of smoking cigarettes, but my friend Matt, so he's here in Argentina with me. He just went back to the US and he ordered us a bunch of like nicotine gum on Amazon. So he's gonna bring it back down. So I'll definitely be making the switch, but I have noticed like a huge benefit. Although I'm not condoning the use of cigarettes. Not good. It's not good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think as long as you're not like smoking it, it's probably okay. Like, it's addictive, but lots of things are addictive. So I think as long as you're smart with it again and not relying on it, then it's a good tool.
Yeah. A lot of these things are addictive. Like I'm 100% addicted to coffee. Like I know it.
Yeah,
And I'm
me
sure
too.
like 90% of the world is too. But
Yeah,
I've said in the past, like, if I'm going to be addicted to something, I want it to be coffee because that probably means like I'm being productive versus like if I'm addicted to weed, that probably means I'm not being productive. But what are your thoughts on like alcohol and weed in relation to health, fitness, life, productivity?
I think it's everything's a balance, right? So I personally don't smoke weed or drink alcohol. Um, Not really because it's unhealthy. Like it's more just I don't like the taste of alcohol. I don't like how it makes me feel. So I haven't had a drink for like, I don't know, maybe 4 years. But some people love drinking. And so I think it's a balance. Again, it's the same thing. It's like if you're relying on alcohol and weed, like that's a problem. But if you're having it just, for fun and because you enjoy it, then that's fine. It's just don't go overboard on that sort of thing.
I like that approach. And I know it's a cliche, but like everything in moderation. But I think it's a cliche because it's true. I think these things are okay, like they're okay if you do them once in a while and if you do them consciously. I think for me, I've like gotten into trouble in the past with them when it becomes like unconscious and like I'm just doing it to do it and not really thinking about it. But if I really am intentional, like I'm gonna have like a glass of wine with dinner, like that's okay. But if it ends up like me in high school, like drinking 15 beers in a night, like it's not probably not good.
Yeah, exactly. Like a beer every now and then is fine. And if you enjoy it, then do that. Like I'm all about balance and doing the things you want to do. But yeah, it's always about being smart and intentional with it.
100%. And I think like the consciousness and the emotional control piece, like that leads right into another topic on your medium that I really found interesting. And it was how to structure your day like a stoic. So like, can you go into that? What does that mean?
Yeah. So as I think lots of people in the self-improvement world have done, I went hard into Stoicism for a little bit there with reading Ryan Holiday and Marcus Aurelius and stuff. Like I loved it. I really am a big fan of Stoicism. I think it's a great blueprint for living a good life. And so I've been reading a lot, listening to podcasts and stuff. And then I wrote that article just because it's like they have so many daily practices that I think more people should implement in their life. So it's like waking up early, planning your day, reflecting, reading, always trying to be a better person, like working with purpose. And then, like in the evenings, again, like reflecting on the day. How can I be better tomorrow? And just the whole like controlling what you can control, and life is short, like it's such a good blueprint for life. So with that article, I was just trying to provide like a practical guide for like how to take this philosophy and like apply it to your life, like what that would practically look like. So I run through the day from like morning, like here's the practices you should do in the morning, here's what you can do during the day, and here's what you can do in the evening to like live the stoic life.
That's so cool. And I didn't read it full transparency because I wanted to wait for your response and I wanted it to be like fresh. But I'm thinking like if you repurpose that into a thread on Twitter, like you had a badass Marcus Aurelius picture as like the hook, that would go so viral.
I should try that actually. I used to write a bit of that stuff on Twitter as well, but I've been so focused on like health right now. But I think that ties in so much to health because it's those non-negotiables again, like planning your day and waking up early and stuff like that. So I should definitely do that.
I'll give it a retweet. Yeah, that'd be sick. I would be very interested to read it. Um, but I think the stoicism, like the biggest part for me is the emotional control. And I think that really relates into health and fitness, especially eating. And I know a lot of people, including myself, I've struggled with like binge eating and emotional eating in the past. And so I'm curious, like, how do you approach that with your clients? Like, because I'm sure a lot of them maybe got out of shape or aren't in the best shape because of emotional eating habits. And like, I'm sure that ties into psychology and stuff too. So I'm curious your approach on it.
Yeah, that's definitely, I would say, probably the biggest thing I see with both my clients and just people that I talk to, like in the DMs and stuff, is like usually the training's fine. They're like, I can go to the gym, I can go for a walk and stuff like that, but it's the food that's really hard and staying on track with eating well. Um, so it's definitely it's probably the biggest thing that we need to address when I'm working with a client. And it's the whole mindset around food as well, like the all or nothing mindset. It's like, well, I had a piece of chocolate, so I blown my diet. So I'm just going to eat the whole bar now. Like it's that sort of thing. Like it's like either I'm completely on the diet or I'm completely off. And like that's where that balance comes in again. Like you can have a piece of chocolate, like that's not going to wreck anything. It's when you're having like a whole big family size bar of it in one sitting. So mindset is so important in fixing that relationship with food because a lot of people they use food to deal with stress. And if something bad has happened in their life, I've had so many people say like they turned to food and food was a tool they used to get through the hard time. And now they don't know how to cope with emotions any other way. So I think, yeah, like those stoic practices can be really helpful there for learning that control. And even like things like meditation as well, like it's the whole awareness thing. Like you need to be aware of why you're eating the food. Like, are you eating it because you're hungry? Are you eating it because you're stressed? Like for me, I always try to be intentional with what I'm eating. Like if I want a piece of chocolate, that's fine, but I'm eating it because I want it, not because like I feel like I need it to get through the day. So I try to be really mindful of that. And I try to teach that to my clients as well. And it's the same thing like when you're tired, because your hunger hormones are out of whack when you're tired and stressed. And being able to recognize that makes it way easier to stay on track. Like if I'm really tired and I'm craving sugar, I can recognize I'm tired. It's because my hormones are out of whack. I don't actually need the sugar. And I think that helps a lot. It's the whole awareness thing.
Those are such great points. And the last thing you hit on with like the lack of sleep and not being able to regulate your emotions, that is such an underrated aspect. I was listening to Lex Friedman and this guy, I think his name was Brian Johnson. He's like the whole reversing aging guy. I don't know if you've seen him, but they both talked about they're like my willpower to not binge eat. And these are like some of the smartest people in the world saying this. And it made me feel a lot better because one thing with the binge eating is like you feel like such an idiot. It's like I can't even stop myself from doing this. Like, how is this possible? But even some of the brightest people in the world struggle with it. And they both said like their ability to not binge eat is directly related to the amount of deep sleep they got the night before. And after hearing that, like I'm prioritizing like 8, 9 hours a night now. And I feel so much more like I'm in control.
Yeah. Like it's no wonder that people struggle with it. Like so many people are sleeping 5 or 6 hours a night, sometimes less. And then they're saying, like, I can't control myself. Like I eat so much junk food. And it's like, it's so hard because it's your physiology at that point. Like your body's screaming for quick carbs, and sugar and everything's out of whack. And when you're tired, everything is harder anyway. So you're fighting such an uphill battle when you're tired. And same with like when you're stressed, like cortisol just makes everything out of whack. And it's really hard to stay on track in those situations. But people don't know that. And then they think it's like a character trait. They think, like I'm just a terrible person. I have no self discipline. But that's usually not it at all. Like they usually just need some sleep.
Exactly, right? It's crazy how everything is so tied in. And I mean, like the whole hustle culture notion, and this I don't think it necessarily conflicts with like the stoic wake up early, but I think the problem is like when you feel like you have to wake up early and grind, but you're waking up at 6 a.m., but you went to bed at midnight. Like at that point, you're better off probably like sleeping till 8. And so what I've kind of reframed this in my head because first couple weeks I was down here, I was like, I'm going monk mode. Like I'm waking up at 5:30 and I'm running like every day. And for like 4 days, I was killing it. And then I got super burnt out. And I'm like, why? But it was because I was going to bed at 11 or 11:30 and waking up at 5:30. And so I couldn't regulate my emotions. But now I've shifted it more towards like I'm going to be in bed like 11, 11:30, and I'm waking up at 7:38. And yeah, like, okay, I might be getting a later start than some people on the day, but I'm able to focus so much deeper during the day when I get those 8, 9 hours even is just amazing if I can get that.
Yeah. And that like sleep is everything. Like that's your ability to lose fat, build muscle, think properly. Like sleep should be the number one priority, I always say. And that's one of the things I address first with my clients is like working out and cooking dinner is going to be so much harder if you're not sleeping well. So like let's get you sleeping well, let's get your energy levels up, and then we'll worry about training and nutrition and stuff because like it makes everything so much harder if you're low on sleep.
That's such a smart approach with your clients to like prioritize that and like psychological stuff first because everybody, like, I feel like a lot of people in the fitness space, they're just like, all you have to worry about is calories. But it's like, it's so much deeper than that, right? Um, but for you, like you said you wake up at 6, right? So like what time are you trying to go to bed by?
I like to be in bed by like 9:30, like kind of getting ready for bed by 9. Definitely lights out by like 10, so I get those 8 hours is ideal. But sometimes I have hockey late. Like I can be at the rink till like midnight sometimes. So in those situations, I will try to sleep in. I'm not very good at sleeping in, but I'll try to sleep till like 7, which goes against like a lot of what I say. I'm always like, keep a consistent wake time, keep a consistent sleep
Mhm.
schedule. But I think getting the sleep is so much more important. So like as much as possible, try to keep a schedule. But if I'm at the rink till midnight, I'm not gonna get up at like 6 o'clock just because, especially because I work for myself. So like why am I depriving myself sleep when I could just wake up an hour later, like I'm my own boss. So I try
Yeah.
to prioritize sleep.
Yeah, it's that high achiever guilt of like, oh, I'm waking up an hour late, I'm gonna be behind. But it's like, no, you're probably gonna be fine. Something that was interesting that one of my clients who I help out with Twitter, I asked them the question, I'm like, what would be better? Would it be better for me to get like 5 or 6 hours of sleep one night and wake up like at the same time every day? Or would it be better to like get those whole 8 hours, but like have my circadian rhythm off by 2 hours? And he was like, 100%, it's more important to wake up at the same time. And that kind of like blew my mind too. But like, what's going on there with like, why is that so important to be consistent?
It is, yeah, it's just the circadian rhythm. Like your circadian rhythm is in charge of pretty much like all the processes in your body, like body temperature, hormone release, everything like that. So it's really important to try to stick to the same schedule as much as possible, because the wake time's kind of like the anchor. So you wake up, you get light in your eyes, and it signals to your body like we're awake now, and it resets your rhythm. So like if that's changing every day, everything else just gets out of whack as well, which is why so many like shift workers have so many issues with like being overweight. And I think like, heart disease, like all those chronic illnesses are so much worse in shift workers. And obviously that's also because usually their total sleep isn't as good, but it's also because their circadian rhythm changes like every day. So it's really important to keep a schedule, even with your eating. Like I've read research and it's like you should try to eat at the same time every day as well. Like the more consistent you can be, like the healthier you're going to be.
Yeah, the consistent eating piece is a real game changer for me too, in terms of like moderating how much I'm eating and like not overeating. But for you, like what's a typical day of eating look like for you?
Yeah. So I'm very much, I eat the same things like every day. So
Same.
for breakfast, it's like eggs. I usually have like 3 eggs, usually on some sourdough with grass-fed butter. I'll usually add some cheese and some sort of meat as well, just to top up my protein. And then obviously coffee as well. I try to have it after breakfast just because coffee on an empty stomach can sometimes be problematic. And then lunch, my go-to lunch is like ground beef with sweet potato, which I learned from Dan Coe. So I do that a lot, but it changes. Like right now I'm having soup. So I made like a big batch of soup. And I've been having that, but I try to get some sort of meat and vegetables. And then dinner again is kind of just like meat and vegetables. So I love sweet potato and there's tons of it here. And then, yeah, like chicken, steak, pork, literally any meat. And yeah, I try to eat at the same time every day. I try to stop for lunch. Eating lunch is a problem because I start working and I don't want to stop working. So I'm trying to eat lunch every day at roughly the same time. And then usually I have a few snacks as well. I try to keep them high protein. Like I've got some mussels right now. Sometimes I'll have cheese, um, nuts, eggs, that sort of thing.
Interesting. And yeah, I think it's an interesting point you make about coffee on an empty stomach could be problematic. So I do that every day. So like, is that not good?
I think it depends on the person. Like, obviously, like if you're fasting, like coffee can be really good for enhancing like cognitive performance and fat loss and stuff like that. And I think it's just, you just need to listen to your body. Like for me, I must have been, I think it was a couple years ago, I was fasting so that I could do my writing in the morning and not have to worry about eating. And I would have coffee and stuff. And it stressed my body out so much that like all my lymph nodes were swollen for like months. And the doctors actually thought I might have lymphoma, but it was actually just because I wasn't eating breakfast and I was drinking coffee on an empty stomach. Like it was actually crazy. So I think guys can get away with it a lot better than girls just because of our hormones. And because I'm quite lean as well, my body can get stressed really easily. So, like, what's going to work for me isn't what works for other people. But for me, especially, like, if I have coffee on an empty stomach, like, I get jittery, I get shaky, like, it's just such a better experience if I eat first, which is annoying because I'd love to skip breakfast and just work all morning, but I need to make sure I stop and eat and then have coffee.
I didn't realize that there would be a difference between like guys and girls in terms of how that could affect you, but it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
But I kind of fall into that bucket of like, I just want to wake up and work. And I usually won't eat until I'm done with all the work for the day. So like, I mean, I did have a little bit of something for lunch right now. I had like 3 eggs and then a banana and some strawberries. But yeah, I usually fast like the entire day. So I'll wake up at like 8. I'll just go like a couple coffees, like 2, and then sometimes I know it's not great for the gut health, but I will do like an energy drink around like midday. Especially if I have a podcast. I just like doing that to get dialed in. But yeah, then I'll usually eat like the first time around like 2 or 3. And then I'll have like a pretty big dinner. I'll probably have a pretty big dinner at like 7 tonight. But for me, the intermittent fasting has been such a game changer. But I hear some people say it's completely overhyped. So like what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. There's definitely mixed opinions about it. And again, like I think it's so individual. Like I know that there's so many good health benefits to it and the cognitive clarity is like amazing. But when I do it, my body just doesn't like it. Like it gets stressed out, like I lose weight, like it's like it's really bad. But for some people like it works for them. And there's a lot of good research. Like fasting is really good for you. So if you can do it, I recommend doing it. But there's so many factors that are at play there because even like for some people it's great for fat loss because you're fasting, you're tapping into your body's fat stores, like all of that stuff. But then there's people who if they skip breakfast they're way more likely to be starving later on and reach for like junk food and then overeat later. So then in that situation it's better that they have like a high protein breakfast so that their hunger kind of stays stable throughout the day and they're not reaching for junk food when they're starving. So yeah, it fasting is good health wise, but you need to pay attention to how your body responds and it isn't for everybody.
It's so subjective. And that's what I'm realizing is like at first when I found intermittent fasting, I'm like, this is the right thing. This is like the best thing ever. But then I experimented with other stuff and I even experimented with like carnivore at one time. I experimented with like eating like a bunch of small meals with a bunch of protein the whole day. But now I've kind of come back to this fasting and I really like it. But yeah, I wanted to dive a little bit into like your coaching business. So what is the hardest part about making change in other people?
I think definitely mindset is huge. Like if I think about my clients who are doing really well and make my life really easy, their mindset is great. But like the people that are struggling, especially with staying consistent, are the people whose mindset isn't quite right. And obviously, getting someone to change their mindset is hard. Like I can give them a workout program and it's practical. It's like, here's what you need to do step by step. That's fine. But changing your mindset, I can't just give them a blueprint and make that switch. Like it's not tangible like other parts of health are. So it's the most challenging aspect. And it's also the most challenging aspect to change as well. Because yeah, you can't just switch your mindset overnight. It's like it's consistent work. And so that's something I'm trying to figure out how to help them with because yeah, it's not just as easy as like giving them a workout to do, like I can tell them to meditate or whatever, but if their mindset even behind the meditation isn't right, like that's not going to work. So that's something I've been trying to work on recently. It's just how can I get their mindset to a place where it's going to work for them?
I can imagine that's super difficult. And especially if somebody's already like in a hole or they're in a bad spot, like it's got to be so tough to like switch them into a positive mindset. But I was listening to Greg O'Gallagher on Danny Miranda's podcast, and he had a really good reframe for like how people could go about thinking about this. He was like let's say you're 50 pounds overweight and like you lose 5. One person might be like, oh, I have 45 more pounds to go. Like this sucks. But like you can literally just flip that and be like, yeah, I'm 5 pounds down, only 45 more to go. Like I'm on the right track. So it's all about like, are you looking at things from a positive lens or a negative lens? But obviously it's easier said than actually put into practice when you're in that spot. Um, but yeah, so what are some other ways you try to get people to like embrace that new mindset change?
I think reminding them of how far they've come, like you just said, like they forget where they started and then they're like, my weight loss has slowed or I still have all these bad habits or whatever, but I'll be like, remember where you were like 4 months ago and look at where you are now. Like, especially with weight loss, sometimes I'll just send them a screenshot of their weight loss graph and I'm like, look, like it's gone down so much. It's consistently going down. Like you're on the right path. But I think it's so easy to focus on where you are now and how far you still have to go. And it's the same with business. Like I'm trying to do that more now. It's like I need to remember how far I've come since I've started this whole thing. Like it's so easy to get wrapped up in where you want to go and how far you have to go, but it's like the fact I even make money from my laptop is amazing. Like it's always just I try to reframe it for them and remind them of how well they're doing because I think it's so easy to lose sight of where you are, and how much progress you've made.
Yeah. And I think you made a good parallel there of like your own progress in business. And I get so caught up in that too, because now that I'm doing this like full time, I've changed who I compare myself to. Like I used to compare myself to the people that were around like 1,000 followers. We were all in the same boat. And now it's like I'm comparing myself to like Dan Coe. And then I'm like, I feel so behind, but it's like, okay, like patience. It's only been 7 months. Like I'm so grateful that I get to do this full time. And if I would have told myself 7 months ago, like, dude, you'd be able to leave college and make a full time, like above the average living salary of an American, like from your laptop and like work 10 hours a week, you'd be so grateful. So perspective is everything in health, life, everything. So true.
Yeah, definitely. And even with that, I heard on one of your other podcasts, like someone like Dan has been doing this like 5 years. And like, of course, he's doing well. Like, he obviously works really hard and he knows what he's doing, but like he didn't start 7 months ago. So of
Mhm.
course he's gonna be ahead of you. And same with like health. Like you again, you talked about this on one of your podcasts. Like you look at the people on Instagram who have like the perfect bodies and there's lots of issues there, but it's like they didn't start, a month ago. Like some of my clients are just starting to go to the gym. So it's all about that perspective. Like you can expect to be somewhere that someone is after like 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. I'm impressed you did your research. You're pulling out quotes from my podcast. That's pretty cool. That's so cool. So yeah, about the business, like going more into the business, what are your plans for like scaling and growing? Because I know it's still relatively early.
Yeah. So that's definitely something I'm trying to figure out now. So I haven't been coaching really that long. I really only started coaching in December last year. So 5-ish months. I've had like a few clients before that, but I didn't really take it seriously. So the coaching's what I'm trying to grow now. And trying to figure out, yeah, the systems to scale it. So I have about 25 clients now, and like it's quite a few to keep on top of. So that's starting to get harder now and obviously less scalable. So I think, yeah, there's different ways to do it. I think I'm trying now to have some passive income as well. So I released a course 2 days ago. So that's kind of like I've got that and then I've got coaching. I think in the ideal situation, I want to eventually get to mainly sort of a passive income where it's like products and stuff like that, and then have maybe like 10 higher level coaching clients that like I really want to work with. So I'm working on moving into more of like a higher ticket model for people who are really serious about optimizing their health. And I want to have like fewer clients so I can give them like 100% of my attention. And then also have, yeah, that more passive income with like courses and stuff. Cause I love building, like, I love building out courses and writing and stuff like that. And I think I've been so focused on the coaching that I kind of lost that writing side of everything. And now that I've got back a bit more into writing, it's like I'm reminded of how much I love to write and just build and create. So I think trying to find a balance between those two is where I'm at.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool perspective and a really long-term perspective you're taking. And it kind of goes back to like the whole Dan Co model, like having those digital products on the back end where it can be earning in your sleep, like that's ultimate leverage. And it's like, okay, how are you going to build this leverage? Growing your Twitter, growing your newsletter. And how are you going to do those? Writing. It kind of all goes back to where you started, which is so cool. But 25 clients is like a lot. Is it just you handling all of them?
Yeah, it's
Wow.
just
Wow.
so
Yeah, that's a lot, I feel like.
yeah. But then like I know people who have like 50 plus clients, but like all they do is coaching. So I know that I definitely want like a balance of both. Like I love just sitting here and writing, by myself. And you wrote a tweet about that the other day. Like you love just like being on your own and, working. But then I do really like the coaching as well. Like I love being able to have those one-on-one connections with people and helping them. So I think my business model is going to be a combination of both. And yeah, some people like one or the other, but I think I like both. And I like the difference as well. Like I usually spend the mornings writing and then I'll spend the afternoons like doing client work. And I really like that balance.
Mhm. Yeah, because then you can like block out the world for the first couple hours. And like, since I'm able to do that, because I only have like 3 clients for ghostwriting, it's a bit different, but I don't really have to check my phone for like the majority of the day. And it's so liberating. But yeah, I think like the way you're going about it is so smart because it's like, okay, as you scale the audience, you'll be able to attract those higher ticket customers and you'll be able to sell more products in the back end. But and you'll have more time to keep growing the audience and keep building more products. It's such an exciting game. And I feel like, I don't know, the leverage just compounds like crazy. But how did you like learn about all this stuff?
Um, well, Dan was a big, big person in that. And I worked with him back when he had his mastery program. So must have been 2 years ago, actually, April 2 years ago, I
Wow.
joined that. And so that was really helpful for learning like all the foundations of that. Like I didn't know anything about like marketing and funnels and email sequences and stuff, like besides my own research that I'd done, which was minimal. I was kind of
Yeah.
just winging it. So it's nice to have that. And I learned about all of that. And then I'm working with some other coaches now, like more fitness, online fitness specific coaches to like learn more specifically about how to market for online fitness coaching. And so I've kind of taken both of them and combined them to make what I'm doing now.
That's super cool. Yeah, I model a lot of like my long-term thinking after Dan's stuff. Like his YouTube is such a gold mine. Like the fact that he's giving away all that for free is just ridiculous. But I didn't even know what marketing was like 6 months ago. I didn't know what a funnel was like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And then I built my own mini funnel actually. Like it's I don't know, it was super out of nowhere, but I launched this like free Twitter growth course and it served as like this interesting funnel because on the back end of it, it was like, if you want like a more in-depth one-on-one call or like ask any questions, like here's a link. And I converted like 8 calls and I was like, holy shit. So that was like my first taste of what a funnel would be like. But once you get to the point where like you're so built out like Dan Co or like Dan Go or like these people that are selling these products on the back end with huge audiences and huge leverage, like everything, you're making money in your sleep. It's so exciting.
Yeah. And I'm getting to that point now with things getting bigger. Like my email list is about 10,000. Twitter hopefully hit 13 today. So I think like I'm getting to that point now, and it's nice to be able to see that coming, because there's traffic going through the offers. People are converting, making a few sales a day on the course or whatever. And yeah, it's starting to become more automatic, which is kind of what I'm going for. Like with client work, like none of it's really automated. Like
Mhm.
you're so involved in it. And I do enjoy that, but I definitely would like the option of like detaching eventually and being
Yeah.
able to just, take a month off and the business keeps running itself.
That makes me think of one of Dan's videos that I think is probably the most valuable video for creators is his stage one, stage two, stage three creators. And I think right now we're probably both in like the stage two range. I think he calls stage two like 10 to 100,000 followers. And it's like you're doing service, you're like trading your time for money still. And this is where most people get caught. And this is what I see a lot of people falling into the trap of is they lock themselves into this service and they never find a way to pivot out of it, right? But to get to that stage three creator and like actually have the freedom over your time, which is why we started this in the first place, you need to be growing your audience, you need to be building things on the back end, and you need to find a way to pivot out of that service-based client work. But I see so many people, like especially in the ghostwriting business, like they they scale the fuck out of their agencies, but then they don't have any time to build anything for themselves. So I don't know. That's something I'm really trying to be conscious of is like making sure I'm still prioritizing my own stuff in the long run and not, I still want to serve my clients and get them great results. But the long game is the personal brand in all of this.
Yeah, definitely. And something I always think about is like, I would rather have less money, but more time than tons of money coming in, but you're working like 12 hours a day, working for someone else essentially, because that's kind of what client work is. So, like,
Mhm.
I don't need to make 100K a month. I would rather work a 2 to 4 hour day and then take the afternoon off.
Exactly. And then the 100K month will come in 2 or 3 years when you've built up all your systems and backend and funnels and audience, and it'll be automated while you sleep. So I'm the same way. Like I'm content, like I'm making a living with a couple clients, but I could try to scale my ghostwriting agency. But why? Like just for the point of making more money, so I have to work more. It's like, no, I have the time. I can work 2 or 3 hours a day and then I can prioritize my own stuff. So it's like sacrificing some of like the immediate gratification in the short run for the long-term rewards. I mean, it's the same thing goes in health and fitness and everything. But I feel like a lot of people I feel like a lot of people around our stage, they get so caught up in just chasing dollar signs that they don't maintain the long-term perspective. So I'm curious where we're going to be at in like 2 or 3 years. I'm really excited.
Yeah, it should be good because we're at about like the same level on Twitter right now.
Yeah.
So it'll be cool to see what happens.
You've got me at like 10x the newsletter subs though. And like that is so valuable, the newsletter. I didn't realize how big the newsletter game was until recently. And like at 10K subs, I don't know if you're selling ads, but they say like a typical ad spot on like a 10K newsletter, you can sell like for $500 for an ad spot. So like theoretically, you could be making, if you send one a week, that's $2,000 a month just by writing your newsletter. And like that $2,000 a month for me, that would like sustain me for a month living just off the newsletter. It's crazy.
Yeah. And having the newsletter I've found is such a good way to build trust with my audience. Like most of my clients that I've signed have come from my newsletter because they've been reading it for like 2 or 3 years. So like they trust me already. So making a sale so much easier than someone who doesn't really know you. And so that's what I try to do. Same with like any product I release, like it goes to the newsletter and I get like a decent amount of sales just because people know me and they like my stuff. So I think, yeah, the trust in a newsletter is so important.
Yeah, Dan talks about that a lot too. Like the long form is how you build that trust and authority and depth. And he talks about obviously the newsletter, but something that I've been doing, I guess, with the podcast kind of unintentionally is trying to build that too. I'm not like my podcast is kind of just like all over the place. It's whoever I'm interested in, like fitness and everything. But Yeah, I think that's a long-term play because people get to know you, right? Like I've done 30 podcasts now, and each one has been like an hour. So like there's 30 hours of me just talking out there. So people probably know me a lot better than like some of my friends know me if they've listened to them all, which is weird. But another thing that Dan, I think he's really done a good job with is like YouTube. So I'm curious, like, have you thought about going into that avenue at all?
I don't do any sort of video at this stage. Like I've always just really enjoyed writing. And so I just write, which is why I love like Twitter and Medium. And I'm branching into LinkedIn now, which is another written platform. But yeah, so far I haven't done any sort of video content. But obviously that's where it's at right now. That short form video is like what's hitting. So it's definitely valuable to get into.
Yeah, the short form video I think is good for like drawing attention and like the top of funnel, but I don't think you're gonna like I don't think people are gonna be converting too many sales off like a 30-second reel. But if that gets them following you or into your funnel and then they become fans, like okay, yeah, it's worth it. I haven't done any of the short form video stuff, but I've been thinking like maybe I should be. Um, but in terms of like, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. I forgot. But in terms of your products, like how are you designing them? How are you structuring them? Um, is it kind of just like off a whim? Or are you modeling it based off previous products?
It's pretty much just on a whim. Like I have two main products now, which is like a low ticket, like 30-day fat loss accelerator course, which is like just like a mini course. And then I just released like my big course. And the fat loss one actually came from my membership because my membership started out with every month I would make a new 30-day roadmap. And that was just one of the roadmaps. And then I kind of put it more into like a course form. And now I'm selling that. And then the other one was just like a curriculum that I built out for some of my coaching clients. Um, and it's just been sitting on my computer for like a year. And I was like, I might as well just sell it as a course. Like there's like, I
Yeah.
think there's like almost 60 modules in it. Like it's really good. I was going through it the other day right before I launched it just to like check everything. And I'm like, this is like good quality stuff. Um, so yeah, it's just like I'd already built it. So I'm like, I'll just sell it. So I don't really plan what I'm going to launch. It's just kind of stuff that I want to build. And then I'm like, well, I've built it. So like now I'll sell it.
Yeah. Have you been nervous before like putting it out there to the public?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I'm not normally nervous until I launch it. And then I launch it and I'm like waiting for a sale to come in. And then I'm like, no one wants it. No one's going to buy it. But then I make that first sale and it's fine. But then, yeah, again, like, because it launched 2 days ago and I was like, all these people have bought it like in the pre sale. And I'm like, what if it's terrible? But then when I went through it, I'm like, no, this is actually really valuable. And I think I'm undercharging for it because there's a lot of content in there. But it's definitely stressful. Like you don't want to let people down, people that have spent money on you. And it's the same with coaching. Like people pay me money and I'm so nervous about letting them down. So
Mhm.
it's definitely nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I can imagine. I have never released the course, but like that would be the biggest limiting belief is like, do I actually know what I'm talking about? And I mean, I'm sure that's not like you obviously know what you're talking about. You've coached so many people. So yeah, that's interesting. What is your price point right now for the higher ticket course?
It's 147 currently. And then the plan is to keep bumping it up because I will keep adding to it like as I learn more stuff. And I already have a few ideas for like some more modules I can put in. So, but that's where it's at now is on 97 for pre-sale.
I could tell
So
you've studied Russell Brunson.
yeah, I'm reading the books right now actually.
I got it right here. That's so
Nice.
funny. Yeah, yeah, it's funny. The like the 97, 147, the value ladder, all that stuff is so eye-opening. And it's like the secrets to starting an online business and like selling stuff is literally in those books. Um,
Yeah.
have you read all three of like the
I
series?
haven't finished them. So I'm reading that one and Traffic Secrets at the same time. And I haven't read
Okay.
.com. yet.
Okay, I haven't read Traffic Secrets, but I read about half of .com and then like half of Expert. I didn't finish either. I have this habit of not finishing any books I start.
Me too.
Um, yeah, but I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Like, because Naval talks about, he's like, just like let your curiosity take you wherever. You don't have to feel like you need to to finish a book. Um, but it's like, am I missing out on really important information at the end? Um, but yeah, so about Traffic Secrets, is it like is it really good?
Yeah, so I haven't finished that one either, but it's helpful. Like it's I think they provide such a good like foundational knowledge of this stuff about, and it's so good to have that knowledge. Like I was reading it last night actually, and I was thinking about that. Like the Twitter growth guides and stuff are great because they provide like the steps that you need to take to, get traffic, but having the foundational understanding of like why you're doing that is really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, Russell Brunson is such a genius. And I never thought I would be like interested in marketing, but the more I learn about it, the more I'm like, this is so cool.
Yeah, definitely. Like I never had any interest in this sort of thing, but now because it's so relevant, because I have a business, like I find it
Exactly.
fast.
Exactly. And that's the thing about like creating or like starting a business is like now Dan talks about this too. He's like everything you read, even if it's philosophy or if it's a marketing book, like you're gonna relate it back to what you're doing in that moment, which is so cool. Yeah, I'm the next move for me is like figuring out like, okay, what's my like what can I sell on the back end? And I feel like if I nail that down, then reading these books will make a lot more sense. But yeah, the marketing stuff is super interesting. And then like realizing that your tweets and threads, like those are just top of funnel marketing tactics. And I never thought about it that way until I read these books. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty fun. Like I find this whole thing fun, it's like a game. And I
It is
love
such a game.
that understanding of it. And now that, yeah, like Twitter's growing for me, it just makes everything so much easier. And I'm starting to like see how it all fits together, which is really cool. Like when you're first starting, it's just like nothing really makes sense, but it's all starting
Mhm.
to come together now, which is cool.
Yeah, it's like any video game you played. And I don't know if you played video games growing up, but like I was a huge video game addict, as were like not probably 99% of guys. Um, and it's like a video game when you start, you're so overwhelmed. It's like there's so much in this game, like I don't even know what I'm looking at. But once you get into this online game and you realize it's a game and you realize like there's all these little things that you can figure out and learn, it becomes so fun. But it's also like once you start to learn about all this stuff, you realize like there's so much more that I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah. I don't think you could ever stop learning. Like
No.
there's always going to be more to learn, which is
Yeah,
fun.
but
Like
that's
I,
exciting. 100%. Yeah, it's such an infinite game. Like this game will go on for I don't know, the rest of our lives potentially. But yeah, that kind of brings me to the last topic that I wanted to ask you about. Like what does the next year or so look like for you right now?
I think pretty similar to what I'm doing now. Like I want to keep coaching. I want to keep growing my audience, content creation, but I think finding ways to scale it and to create systems. Like right now, it's kind of just like messy action. Like I launched this course and just decided to launch it. That's what Dan says. He's like, just launch, and then it's like tactical stress. And then same with
Mhm.
coaching. Like I've just launched like a more higher ticket, higher level program this week. I've made 2 sales. So today and this weekend is just going to be about like quickly putting that together, figuring out what that's going to look like. So I think over the next year, I want more like coherent systems for how I'm going to do things. So there's less messy action, more, everything's just more streamlined is kind of where I'm going. But roughly, I want to be doing pretty much what I'm doing now.
Congrats on the sales. Like that's so exciting that it's cool to see like your next plan start to actually like work, right? Whereas it's all theory in your head until you actually do the thing. But yeah, we've been on here for a while. I know I want to let you get to building those plans. I'm sure it's like looming over your head. So I feel like this is a good place to hop off. But Before we do, like, where can people find you at? Like, what can they expect from you?
Yeah, so Twitter is my main platform, which is at underscore Ashley Richmond. That's a good place to start. I've got my website, which is where you can sign up to my newsletter, which is ashleyrichrmond.net. That should pretty much cover everything. You can search me up on Medium. That's my biggest platform, actually. If you want to read some articles there, just search me up.
Cool. I'll link all that down below. But anyways, this was super fun. Thank you for coming on. This was a awesome conversation.
Yeah, it was good. It was nice to meet you after talking a bit on Twitter and replying to each other's tweets.
100%. That's why I do this. This is exactly why I do this. It's so fun. But yeah, we'll
Yeah.
have to maybe do it again in like a year or so, see where we're at.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sweet. See you, Ashley.